What's going on, guys? I am back. I haven't done one of these face videos in a long time. But anyway, I'm back. Volume 1 of Oblivion just ended last week. And now I am going to be doing I'm answering questions from the whole series. And from a post I put up on my community page a couple of days ago saying I was going to do this video. So first off, thank you for the amazing response to volume 1. I did not expect it to get such a positive response, but I'm really happy it did. So I am just going to read the questions you guys have been sending me. So, and just answering comments in general, just as many as I can. Loved the 3D models for the ship, and I noticed you used blue Energon, which is a personal favorite. Does this mean we'll see dark Energon in the future? I did not think people were going to read too far into that. No. I just assumed that Energon would look blue because it's a bit more alien. And just because of Transformers Prime and all those other shows that had dark Energon, like the War for Cybertron games, I feel like purple Energon now is just instantly recognized as dark Energon, so I went with blue. But I'm liking people thought that I thought that far ahead. Maybe I will. There might be some references in the future, but nothing concrete. Is this connected to Constellation or Ascension or just your own thing? This is its own thing. And I do understand where people are getting the Ascension reference from. That is because a lot of people don't know about Kickovers Backstory. Basically, myself, and I think Joe did too, I used Kickovers Backstory from this comic book. It's called Last Stand of the Wreckers. It's an IDW comic, and it was based on Overlord taking over Garrus 9 and taking the inmates and security officers there, who Kickover was one of them, and made them fight in an arena. The only difference is, compared to my story, is that Kickover didn't survive Garrus 9. He died in Garrus 9. But I always wanted to do a story with Kickover and Overlord, so I thought that would be a good series opener as a first volume to do a contained story with these two characters and see where that goes, because I've always been interested, and I liked that Kickover does not have that much development in the comics. I felt like, for me, he was very much kind of a blank canvas for me to work with and kind of put my own little stamp on the character. And there is going to be more Last Stand of the Wreckers, Garrus 9 references in the volumes to come. Like, we're not finished with that story yet. There is so much more of that to come. Will we see Overlord as MMC Carnifex? Now, some people were wondering why I didn't use Carnifex, and I do have Carnifex. He's actually up on the top of my shelf there. He is not very practical for animation. For one thing, he's very tall. He's one of the tallest figures I have. Well, one of. I mean, I've got 01 Studio Cell Unicron over there as well. But Overlord, the MMC Overlord had really tight joints, very tight joints. So I couldn't like move his elbow without his entire body shifting with it. So it wasn't the easiest thing to animate with. That, and the transformation is quite difficult. I know Overlord only transformed once or twice and off screen, but when I got the Titans Returns one a few months before I started filming, it just felt better practically for animation, and I'm quite happy with how it turned out. And the height difference was easily remedied on a green screen, so that was fine. I wish I could use Carnifex, but again, he was too tall for my green screen. He just wasn't easy to animate with because of the tight joints. So I went with the Titans Returns one, and to be honest, I don't regret it. I'm quite happy with how that worked out. It's like Overlord has the Infinity Gauntlet. Well, that's the thing. The keys were actually based off of the Infinity Stones. They actually were. There is quite a lot of MCU references and kind of inspirations from the MCU brought over from the Cosmic Keys, which they are now called, which Shockwave said at the end of chapter 5. They are called Solus Prime's Cosmic Keys. And again, I can't say how many there are, but we are going to develop that story. I'm very excited about it. Originally, there were no keys. In the original draft of Volume 1, it was a standalone thing. It was not going to have a sequel or sequels, or like build a universe. It was originally just meant to be a one-off thing, equivalent to the length of Constellation. It was meant to be that kind of a project, and there were no keys. It was still about Kickover, and Depth Charge would have been there, and instead of Perceptor, there would have been Ironhide, and all these other things, and the villains actually would have been Striker and Obsidian. So it was very different. There were no keys. But then I came up with a lot of these things when I was working in my last job, where I had a lot of time to myself. So I just started coming up with ideas and watched a lot of the Marvel movies and came up with the keys of Solus Prime. Yes, they are cyber keys. Well, they're used from cyber keys, but they're not cyber keys per se from the Cybertron series. I'm using them, but they're their own artifacts. So I'm looking forward to seeing where else I go with that storyline. I'm very excited. Okay, so someone had 3 questions. Okay, how did you give Overlord more movement in his neck? I think that was just the version I had. I realized he could look up and down a bit, and a lot of it was down to camera angles as well. And just camera trickery sometimes, because his range of movement in his head, because he's got a headmaster in there, which is, I hate the headmaster. I'm sorry, I hate the headmasters. I think they're so bad. I barely got any of that line, only a couple. But it was just a mix of camera trickery and me just pushing that neck to its limit. Question 2. Is Volume 2 going to focus more on the Autobots and Optimus? Yes. Kickover's still there, and he's still our protagonist, but his role is certainly a lot less prominent than it was in Volume 1, because obviously we've introduced a whole cast of characters now. I actually have a Facebook page where I'm going to be posting updates for Oblivion, link in the description. Here's actually the poster for Volume 2, very exciting. Because I'm using a bunch of characters that don't have massively big character arcs outside of the comics, I specifically wanted to use characters that not a lot of people have used. Like, I'm using Punch, I'm using Chrome Dome, who else? Like the Decepticons, there's going to be Blackjack, other characters. This actually weaves into the next question, but basically yes, I'm focusing on more of the Autobots as characters. We're going to get to know Optimus Prime a bit better, and that's going to weave into the next, that third and last question by this person. Is Nemesis Prime going to be the main villain for Volume 2? For starters, because of the poster, people have noticed I had Striker Noir there in the middle. That is actually not Nemesis Prime. That is actually Scourge from RID. Or the version of Nemesis Prime, the character Scourge from RID, if anyone remembers him. I noticed not a lot of people used Scourge, and this again weaved into that I wanted to use lesser known characters, and I noticed not a lot of people use Scourge as a character, like as an Optimus Prime kind of clone. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna use Scourge. That's gonna be fun. And then I came up with this. Originally he was just meant to be there, but now he's got a massive story arc. I'm really excited to see where it goes. I already know how it's gonna end, obviously. I've planned this so far ahead. There's so much foreshadowing in Volume 1 that won't be obvious until Volume whatever the last one is. So yeah, that is not Nemesis Prime, that is Scourge. Not the Unicron's Herald bearded flying dude, no. This is a new version of Scourge, based on the 2001 RID version. Awesome ending, man. Excited to see more. However, I don't know if I missed it or not. What made the key not work for Overlord anymore and kill him? Right, so basically what happened was we saw it in chapter 2 and a bit of 3 that Overlord tried to merge with the key and it didn't work. Obviously he pulled it out. So he was trying to merge it with his spark, but it didn't work. So he just decided to feed off the energy from it that he could, the energy he could utilize, which wasn't actually a lot. It just appeared to be like levitation and laser beams and all that type of stuff. So he wasn't really able to access the full power of the key. There's a lot more that these things can do that has not been explored yet. It'll all make sense in volume 2. It is something that gets addressed. I didn't just leave it hanging there. So when Overlord tried to merge with it the second time, Kickover obviously noticed, from this clip, Kickover noticed that it was overloading him and it could kill him. So Kickover wouldn't be able to, because I remember when I told someone the outline, I said, oh yeah, Kickover kills Overlord. Someone went, well, that's unlikely, because Kickover is tiny compared to Overlord, so how could he beat him in a fight? So basically, Kickover waited till the right moment that he could use the key against Overlord, which he did when Overlord was impaled on a spike. So in the end, it was too powerful for Overlord to handle and it did kill him. What was your favorite episode so far? It's a hard one. See, because the thing is, as the series went on, I just threw myself into the deep end when I started volume 1. So in chapter 1, there's actually, hold on a sec, here is test footage I did before I started filming, which is lousy. I mean, you can kind of tell what scene it's from the first chapter, because I had it written months before I started filming, months. So basically, yeah, that's what happened there. That was some test footage. So as you can see, the animation got progressively better as it went on. And I think if I was to choose a favorite, I loved the fight in chapter 1. I thought that was so much fun to animate, and I thought when I edited it together, it looked really cool. But if I was to narrow it down, I think chapters 3 and 4. Just because I was so happy with that. Chapter 4 was just a chapter of just fighting from start to finish. Besides the little interval in the middle, it was full-blown fighting, and we got to see Overlord wield the cosmic key and all this stuff. So I had so much fun with that. And then chapter 3, because we got to see Kickover and Overlord's backstories. And I thought that was just a fun chapter of just development for those two, to see that these two characters are obsessed for different reasons. Where did you get the sound effects that you used? A lot of them sounded like War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron. Basically, I've kind of gotten involved in some more Transformers related stuff in the last while, and during that time, I had sent a clip from chapter 4 to some mates. When I sent it to them, they said, okay, it's cool, but the sound effects are lacking, because at that time there were no piston sounds, no sounds at all when they moved, just their feet stomping. That was all that was there. So then Mr. Max Ross Linden sent me all of his Transformers sound effects, which included War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron. So he very kindly sent those to me, and I overhauled all of the sound effects from volume 1. It took me, I think, until the day before, 2 days before chapter 5 was released, when I actually finished overhauling all the sound effects. It really took a long time, but then I'm happy with how the sound effects turned out. Shockwave's the leader of the Decepticons and Nemesis Prime's his second in command. Again, it is not Nemesis Prime, Scourge. Shockwave is not, I know a lot of people would draw this from Constellation, thinking it's canon. It's not. Shockwave is not in command, per se. Well, he is in command, but he's not the leader. He's the highest authority at the time, but he's not the leader. And I wouldn't say Scourge is the second in command. He's got a whole other story arc, but he's not second in command. Basically what I'm doing is there's, like a lot of like superhero shows and stuff in movies, there's a big bad in every season. So last season it was Overlord, and now in volume 2 it's Shockwave. So, and then volume 3 it's another villain. So it's the level of villain escalates with each passing volume, and Shockwave is just, he is the highest authority of the Decepticons at the time, but that doesn't make him the leader. He isn't leading them. He's directing them towards a goal for the time being, but that does change. And it'll all make sense in volume 2, I hope. So those are all the questions. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted questions throughout the whole series. I'm really glad you guys enjoyed it, and I am really excited to see what you guys think of volume 2, which I plan to start working on very soon. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time. Bye!